Moral support. N3.
Factors influencing negative health and safety culture in an organization. Lack of strong safety leadership from management. There is a poor leadership from the top because senior management have poor attitude on health and safety. Lack of management commitment to safety. Example, saying one thing and doing another. Health and safety receiving lower priority than other business issues. Organizational changes by which frequent or poorly communicated change resulting in uncertainty. High staff turnover rate at the organization by which workers do not stay long enough to be influenced. Lack of resources are allocated to establish, implement, and maintain the health and safety management system. Example, too few workers due to downsizing and lack of correct equipment. Lack of worker consultation and involvement in the organization. The workers are not engaged and involved in the management of health and safety issues and in the decision-making process. Presence of a blame culture in the organization. Interpersonal issues due to peer group is working unsafely. Example, unregulated peer group pressure, bullying, or harassment. Poor management systems and procedures. Absence of SSOW and SOPs in the organization. External influences from legislations, politicians, diseases on the conduct of business. Example, economic climate resulting in difficult operating conditions, COVID. Poor maintenance and housekeeping to keep workplace unsafe with hazards and risks. Improper access and egress of workers or vehicles in the organization. Poor or no emergency procedures developed to meet unforeseen accidents or mishaps and eventualities in the organization. High accident rate, high absenteeism record, high sickness rates, poor compliance to safety rules, higher prosecution notices or warnings, no integrated HSMS safety policy, no approved PTW, no risk registers, no lack of health and safety policy, HSMS SOPs, no risk hazard near miss reporting, no accident investigation, ineffective communications, lack of training, lack of supervision, high worker complaints, appointing young workers without supervision, production demand, accidents are not investigated, poor behavior from workers on HS.
Visible leadership qualities are behaving safely, leading by example, involvement in the day-to-day management of health and safety, e.g. by attending safety meetings, taking part in safety tours or audits, promoting changes to improve health and safety, enforcing the company safety rules. Effective communication. Written communication. It uses the written word, e.g. report, email, notice, company handbook, policy document, operating instructions, risk assessment, minutes of meetings. Graphic communications. It uses pictures, symbols, or pictograms, e.g. safety signs, such as fire exit sign, hazard warning symbols, such as skull and crossbones found on the label of a toxic chemical, or photographs, such as photos showing a guard being used correctly in the operating instructions for the machine. Broadcasting methods. There are various ways of broadcasting health and safety information using the 3 methods outlined above. Each of these broadcasting techniques has its own strengths and limitations, and so usually a mix of some or all of these techniques is used to ensure that essential messages are transmitted and correctly understood by all staff. Usage of notice boards. It should be eye-catching and located in areas used by all workers, e.g. restrooms or central corridors. Notices should be current, relevant, and tidily displayed. Posters. Used to provide safety information, drawing attention to particular issues and supporting the health and safety culture. Films or videos, mainly used in training programs and, if well made, can hold the audience's attention. Toolbox talks, short practical safety briefings carried out routinely in the workplace, often presented by the supervisor at the start of a shift. They can be useful for generating awareness and discussion on safety precautions, but may be seen dull or a waste of time if topics are irrelevant or poorly presented. Digital media and internet systems. Mobile phones, tablets, computers, and other devices can be used for the dissemination of information in various forms: written, graphic, video, and audio. Company internet systems are network systems that are restricted to in-company users and allow users to access policy documents, procedures, and records. Memos and emails, written notifications used to provide specific information about a single issue, such as updating procedures, drawing attention to lapses in practice, etc. Worker handbooks. Factors to ensure the effectiveness of Safety Committee. Safety Committee should have representation from all departments of the company. Safety Committee should have balanced representation from management and non-management staff. Terms of reference of the Safety Committee will be in force. Identification of chairman of the Safety Committee will be done to preside over the meetings. Relevant information on the conduct of the Safety Committee will be communicated. Sufficient resources for conducting of Safety Committee must be provided. Sufficient time should be provided to the safety committee members to conduct the meeting. Permission to visit other companies to learn their progress on safety committee shall be provided. Typical content of General Induction Training Course for New Starters. The organization's health and safety policy. Employees will be explained about the HSC policy, its objectives. Company's products and services. Fire and other emergency procedures. Details of specific workplace major hazards, risks, and their controls. Site HSMS and arrangements for HSMS. Information on hazardous substances. First aid facilities and personnel. Site layout and emergency contact numbers. Muster points information, exits. The location of welfare facilities. Safe movement around the workplace. Near miss, accident, and incident reporting procedures. LTI and risk register. Worker consultation arrangements. Safety culture. Waste management. Housekeeping principles. Certifications. ISO 9000, 14000, 45001. General safety rules, such as no smoking areas. Personal protective equipment, PPE, requirements. Introduction to the safe systems of work and permit systems. Introduction to the risk assessment system. Responsibilities of individuals. Disciplinary procedures. Smoking policy. Organizational factors influencing safety-related behavior are the health and safety culture of the organization. This is the way that all the people within the organization think and feel about health and safety, and how this translates into behavior. The culture is gradually absorbed by the individual. Commitment and leadership from management. Senior managers possess the leadership necessary to inspire and motivate managers at all levels to pursue health and safety standards rigorously, whether this is visibly demonstrated outside the boardroom. Resources. Management should provide adequate resources to establish, implement, and maintain health and safety management system. This includes the provision of adequate time, money, equipment, and personnel to manage and carry out work safely. Shift work patterns, such as shift systems, working at night, or working extended hours. This can adversely affect workers' health and cause fatigue, that in turn can lead to poor performance and increase the risks associated with safety-critical work. Communication. How effective the organization is at using various communication methods to convey health and safety messages and information to the workforce, and how well the organization then checks understanding of those messages. Levels of supervision. The presence or absence of, and the competence of, supervision, and the way that poor safety-related behavior is dealt with. Consultation and worker involvement. The extent to which workers are engaged and involved in the management of health and safety issues and in the decision-making process. Training. How good the organization is at identifying health and safety training needs and opportunities, and how well it then meets those needs to create well-informed, competent staff. Influence of peer group behavior. Peer group pressure/behavior is an important factor to take into account when thinking about safety-related behavior. If a group is already working safely, then peer group pressure will keep most people in the group in line. But if the group is working unsafely, then peer group pressure will tend to force new workers to behave unsafely in an attempt to fit in with group norms. Importance to health and safety. In an organization with a positive health and safety culture, the senior management and majority of the workers think and feel that health and safety is important. They give equal importance to health and safety. SSOW/SOPs. These are the formal procedures based on a systematic examination of work in order to identify the hazards and work safely. These procedures, if followed, will eliminate those hazards or minimize the risks associated with them. Legal compliance. A good organization will follow and comply the rules and regulations framed for the conduct of the organization. Organization structure. A good organization outlines the chain of command for health and safety management and identifies the roles and responsibilities of staff to enable clear delegation of duties. Safe workplace. Employers control the premises, equipment, and working practices used by workers to produce the goods and services that the employer requires. Employers who feel that they have a moral responsibility to keep the workplace health and safety. Safe machinery. Employers who feel that they have a moral responsibility to keep the workplace health and safety, provide and maintain safety machinery for the workers to work safely. Health and safety championed at board level. An organization appoints a director/senior manager with specific responsibility for health and safety so that it can be championed at board level. Award-reward programs. Organizations recognize workers' participation in decision-making and providing suggestions/ideas reward with safety incentives and awards. Welfare issues. Adequate welfare provision must be made for the workers engaged in the workplace. This will include issues such as drinking water, changing rooms, sanitary conveniences, washing facilities, and rest and eating facilities.
Job factors influencing safety-related behavior are the task, the characteristics of the work itself, in particular the ergonomic requirements. Ergonomics is the interaction between the worker and their work task, work equipment, and work environment, so as to achieve the best match. For example, if a worker needs to bend or stoop over when carrying out a task, then that task needs to be adapted to best suit the worker concerned. Workload, the amount of work, rate of work, deadlines, and variety of work that individuals have to cope with, and the degree to which these are under the direct control of the worker or imposed externally. Environment, the workplace conditions such as space, lighting, noise, temperature, and humidity, and the way that these parameters are controlled so as to minimize their impact on worker performance. Displays and controls, the design of these, and the way that poorly designed displays and controls can contribute to the likelihood of human errors. Procedures, the existence and quality of working procedures. If there is a lack of written procedures, or if they are poorly written, out of date, overly complex, or impractical, workers may not comply. To be effective, procedures should be accurate, concise, use familiar language, and they must be doable. Poorly designed job description, a written document that details the key responsibilities, duties, and expectations for a specific role within a company. Without any specific job description and various jobs are provided then and there, will influence the worker's behavior. The task is above your competency. Right man, right job is the basis for allocation of job. If the task allotted is above their competency, it will influence the worker's behavior. Long working hours. Long hours of work and continuous work without holiday will influence the worker's behavior. Discrimination. Discrimination of workers due to color, caste, creed, qualification, and work will influence on workers' behavior. Bullying. Presence of bullying and harassing workers in the workplace will influence on workers' behavior. Exposure to hazards. Continuous exposure to hazards which are harmful for health will influence on workers' behavior. Welfare. Adequate welfare provision must be made for the workers engaged in the workplace. This will include issues such as drinking water, changing rooms, sanitary conveniences, washing facilities, and rest and eating facilities. Individual factors influencing safety-related behavior are competence. Competence is a combination of knowledge, experience, training, and ability that brings a person up to a level where they are able to perform to an acceptable standard and are aware of their own limitations. Skills. Each individual has skills that they have developed over time. Some of these skills are physical, others are mental. Right skill person to the right role. If fitting a person with the wrong skill set into the wrong role is unwise, a person with poor manual skills may be incapable of safely controlling a piece of machinery during work activity because they lack the necessary skill. Personality. Various innate characteristics underpin a person's character, such as risk-taking or risk aversion, introversion or extroversion, etc. Attitude to health and safety can be influenced, skills can be increased, and competence developed, but a person's personality remains largely fixed. It's who they are. Attitude. An attitude is a person's point of view or way of looking at something, how they think and feel about it. Risk perception. How a person interprets a situation using his sense. Different people perceive risk in different ways. Some people are very good at correctly recognizing the real risk associated with work. Others are very poor at this, and either perceive risks that are not real or are trivial, making them unnecessarily risk-averse, or they do not recognize the real risks present. Age, gender, and marital status. Of the worker will handle the work differently than an other age, gender, and married worker. This will have a direct influence on work. Culture. The cultural background of the worker and the society from where he is brought up and educated will also have influence on the work. Qualifications. The educational qualifications should have some leverage with the job they are doing. If the educational qualification of the worker is high or low to the job they are handling, then there will be an influence on the worker towards the work. Experience. The knowledge and skill developed and the ability to handle the job of a worker should be matched with the job he is engaged. Ability, capability of the worker. The ability, capability of the worker should match with the job he is allocated. Training. Various academic qualification along with job-related training will enable a worker to carry out the job smoothly.
Motivation. The self-interest and inner inertia of the worker to carry out the work is an important factor which influences workers' behavior. Benefits of risk assessment, or what arguments the safety role holder will use that the director should be involved more in risk assessment. Involvement in risk assessment will enable the director to achieve aims and objectives of health and safety within the time prescribed. Involvement in risk assessment will enable the director on encouragement of proactive management. Involvement in risk assessment will enable the director in identification of opportunities and threats. Involvement in risk assessment will enable the director to comply with relevant regulatory requirements, legal reason. It will enable the director in improving governance, stakeholder confidence, and trust. It will ensure a reliable basis for decisions-making and planning. It helps to reduce the risk in the workplace. It helps to reduce enforcement actions. It helps to manage the resources. It helps to demonstrate commitment. It helps to be a more responsible manager. It helps to achieving the HSE objectives. It helps to implementing the HSE policy effectively. It helps in preventive controls are identified. It helps to reduce accidents in the workplace. It will provide improved risk control, loss prevention, and incident management. It will provide effective allocation and use of resources for risk control. It will enhance improved operational effectiveness and efficiency. It will provide enhanced health and safety performance. Why is risk assessment important? It creates awareness on hazards and risks. It identifies who may be at risk, IG employees, visitors, contractors, public, etc. It determines whether a control program is required for a particular hazard. It determines if existing control measures are adequate or if more should be done. It prevents injuries or illnesses, especially when done at the design or planning stage. It prioritizes hazards and control measures. It meets legal requirements where applicable. Factors to ensure that risk assessment is suitable and sufficient. Identify whether the risk assessment is done by competent teams. Ensure whether the risk assessment is carried out considering all the applicable local norms. Ensure whether likelihood and consequences identified. Ensure whether the risk rate is based on approved risk assessment matrix. Ensure whether all the hazards and significant risks arising out of work are identified. Identify all those persons who could be at risk, including workers and others such as visitors and vulnerable people. Evaluate the effectiveness of any current controls. Enable the employer to identify and prioritize the measures that must be taken to protect people from harm, including complying with any relevant legal provisions. Be appropriate to the nature of the work and remain valid for a reasonable period of time. In other words, the assessment should be proportionate to the risks in the workplace. Whether all the existing controls identified. Whether all the non-routine tasks are included. Whether controls to reduce risk rate is included. Awareness on communication of risk assessment. Reporting writing skills is to be considered. Hierarchy of risk control as per engineering controls involve the use of an engineering solution to prevent exposure to the hazard. This may be done by isolation or total enclosure. The aim here is to isolate the hazard physically so that nobody is exposed to it. This might be done by total enclosure or containment of the hazard, e.g., total enclosure of a process which generates dust to prevent its escape, acoustic enclosure of a noisy machine to reduce the noise exposure of those nearby, or guards around moving machinery to prevent contact. Separation or segregation, simply placing the hazard in an inaccessible location, e.g., the use of goalposts to warn live electrical overhead. Partial enclosure, e.g., a hazardous substance might be handled in a fume hood or partial enclosure, which the worker can reach into for handling purpose. Safety devices and features that ensure that the item is used in the correct way and not an unsafe way, e.g., interlock switches are fitted to movable guards on machinery to ensure that when the guard is open, the machine will not operate, e.g., lift. Hierarchy of risk control as per administrative controls. Safe System of Work, SSOW. This is a formal procedure which defines a method of working that eliminates hazards or minimizes the risks associated with them. Safe systems of work are necessary whenever hazards cannot be physically eliminated and some element of risk remains. Permit to Work, PTW. It is a part of SSOW to control high-risk activities such as hot work. It formalizes the control of high-risk work to ensure that all the risks have been identified, all the precautions have been put in place, and that appropriate information has been communicated to all relevant parties. Reduce exposure. If the degree to which a worker is exposed to a hazard can be reduced, then that worker is far less likely to have an accident with that hazard. Reduce time of exposure. Many health hazards in the workplace cause a degree of harm that is entirely dependent on the dose that a worker receives, e.g., the harm caused by noise, vibration, radiation, and most hazardous chemicals such as lead. The dose is determined by two principal factors: the concentration, intensity, or magnitude of the hazard present, the time of exposure. Information, instruction, training, and supervision, IITS. Providing information and instruction to workers will enable them to work safety. Training is instrumental in enabling employees to become competent. A competent employee is equipped with all relevant information and is fully aware of the hazards and the use of appropriate preventative measures. Supervision refers to management routinely checking workers and exercising their authority to control behavior. Supervision, which is of critical importance as a management control, does not necessarily mean constant oversight of workers and the workplace. Job rotation. It is a practice where employees are moved to different roles within an organization to learn new roles and different function. Usually after doing heavy jobs, other light jobs will be provided, e.g. after doing hand/body-related vibration jobs. Implementation of procedures. Procedures are detailed written instructions that outline the specific steps for completing a task or activity within an organization. Buddy system. It is a cooperative arrangement where individuals are paired or teamed up and assume responsibility for one another's welfare or safety. Safety signs. Safety signs combine shape, color, and pictograms to convey specific health and safety information or instructions. While there are regional variations, the standard safety signs are divided into 5 categories. Prohibition, directed at stopping dangerous behavior, e.g. no smoking. The signs are circular with a black pictogram on a white background with a red border and red diagonal crossbar. Warning, tell people to be careful of a particular hazard, e.g. forklift trucks operating in the area. The signs are triangular with a black pictogram on a yellow background with a black border. Mandatory action, instruct people to take a specific action, often relating to wearing personal protective equipment, e.g. eye protection must be worn. They are circular with a solid blue background and a white pictogram. Safe condition. Identify behavior or places of safety, e.g. first aid station. They are rectangular or square with a white pictogram on a green background. Firefighting equipment. Identify particular items of equipment, e.g. hose reels. They are rectangular or square with a white symbol or pictogram on a red background.
Emergency procedure arrangements in an organization. Foreseeable emergencies. An outline of foreseeable emergencies that might occur, along with the circumstances in which they might occur and their foreseeable outcomes. Procedures for raising the alarm. Workers need to know how the relevant alarms are raised for different types of emergency and any escalation procedure that might apply. E.g., manual call points might be used to raise the alarm in the event of fire. Procedures to be followed. In the event of a fire, for example, normal practice is for workers to exit the building using the signed escape routes and assemble at a designated place. In the event of a real bomb threat, the procedure is often the exact opposite, to go to a room inside the building, away from window and external walls. Provision of suitable equipment. If there is a chemical spill, absorbent granules or booms might be used to contain the spill, and PPE used to prevent harm to those involved in the containment operation. In the event of a release of toxic gas, respiratory protective equipment may be needed. Nomination of responsible staff. In a fire situation, there is likely to be a need for fire wardens or marshals who walk through the building to check that everyone is aware of the fire evacuation. A fire team may also be required, whose job will be to check the area where the fire is suspected to be. Dealing with the media. It is foreseeable that some emergencies will attract media attention. Procedures for handling the media should be developed, and nominated staff trained in media handling techniques, such as how to answer questions from newspaper and radio reporters. Arrangements for contacting emergency services. While internal emergency arrangements must be made by the organization to deal with foreseeable incidents, these responses will normally also involve contacting external emergency services for help.
Why it is important to practice emergency procedures. Reduces panic in real emergencies. When workers practice emergency procedures regularly, they are more likely to stay calm and act properly during a real incident instead of becoming confused or frightened. Helps workers know exactly what to do. Practice makes sure everyone understands their role in an emergency, such as who should give first aid, who should call the ambulance, and who should control the area. Improves speed of response. In an actual emergency, quick action is very important. Practicing procedures helps workers respond faster, which can reduce the seriousness of injuries. Improves communication during an incident. Emergency practice helps workers learn how to pass clear information to each other and to outside emergency services, avoiding delays and misunderstandings. Makes first aid response more effective. If the first aid procedures are practiced, injured persons can receive help more quickly and correctly, which may prevent the condition from becoming worse. Helps in controlling the incident scene. Practicing emergency arrangements helps workers know how to keep other people away from the area, protect the injured person, and prevent further harm. 7. Ensures emergency equipment can be used properly. Practice allows workers to become familiar with first aid kits, barriers, telephones, emergency contact details, and other emergency arrangements. Tests whether procedures actually work in practice. Sometimes a procedure may look fine on paper, but during practice weaknesses may be found, such as delays, lack of equipment, or unclear responsibilities. Helps identify gaps in training or competence. By practicing emergency procedures, management can see whether workers need more instruction, support, or refresher training. Improves coordination with emergency services. Workers become more confident in contacting ambulance or other emergency services and giving the correct information about the incident. Reduces the chance of further injury or damage. A well-practiced response can stop the situation from getting worse by helping workers act safely and quickly. Protects workers, customers, and visitors. In a place like Quick Shop, not only workers but also customers may be present, so practicing emergency procedures helps protect everyone on site. Supports business continuity. If emergencies are handled properly, disruption to the business can be reduced and the store may return to normal operations sooner. Shows good health and safety management. Regular practice demonstrates that the organization takes emergencies seriously and is prepared to deal with them effectively. Builds worker confidence. Workers are more likely to feel secure and supported when they know there is a clear emergency system in place and that they have practiced it before.
What arrangements would make another worker to manage emergencies? Identify a replacement for the in-change, nominated individual. The nominated individual must be recorded in the procedures. Nominated individual should be given training. Observe based on a scenario how well the nominated individual acting/discharge duty.
Factors that might need to be considered when determining the first aid facilities for a workplace are the nature of the industry, the type of business and what hazards are inherent in it. An office is different from a foundry. General risk level of the workplace. Hazards present in the workplace. Accident history. HSE culture. Specific procedures required. Example, some toxic materials have specific antidotes or first aid protocols. Presence of vulnerable persons/employees in the workplace. Example, trainees, young workers, disabled persons, pregnant women. Number of employees in the workplace. Work patterns and shift systems of workers. Geographic location of the workplace. Remoteness of the site from emergency medical services. Spread of the workplace. Distribution of the workforce. Example, number of buildings on a site. Number of floors. Provision for non-employees. Example, shoppers, school children. Availability of identified first aiders. Cover for first aiders during annual leave. Peripatetic, traveling for a short period of time, employees. The legal requirements for the industry. The physical size of the organization.
Zion International Safety College, Nagercoil. Admission open. Call now, 9080865511.
Subscribe now and stay up